2414 is a podcast about finding hope and common ground through casual conversation. Like the friends on the road in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 24, verse 14, we want to walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. Thanks for walking with us.
Hey, welcome to 2414, the podcast. My name is Dan Weber, sitting across from the table with...
My name is Shane Welter.
Shane, we've known each other for how long now?
Year and a half.
A year and a half, a deep seasoned friendship. Although in that year and a half, I can't count how many hours we've probably spent together.
I mean, in that year and a half, we survived COVID.
We survived COVID.
And in 100 years, that'll sound
That's
cooler.
going to be impressive. Yes, yeah. Right now, it's everyone who's listening to this also survived COVID. You've survived time with my children.
I have survived two different apartments. Places to live, I guess.
Yeah, two different residences here in Federal Way, Washington. Neither of which have you ever invited me over into.
First one, no one was invited. That
was for their well-being.
It was for their well-being.
Okay.
This one, now we can.
Yeah. Good deal. Well, those of you listening, thank you for joining us. This is 2414. Shane and I here at St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Footerway, Washington, are kicking off a brand new podcast. My role here at St. Luke's is I get to serve as the lead pastor. I've been here for just over 5 years now. As Shane said, he's been here for a year and a half, going on 2 years. Shane, what's your role? What are your responsibilities?
Yeah, so my title is Director of Worship and Arts. I plan worship services, with that, all the music and just the kind of step-by-step, service plan, what to expect, and sometimes the transitions of it with that, the slides, You
lead the vocals, you lead the tunes.
Yeah, the music worship, I don't know. A year and a half, I still don't know how to describe it.
We're figuring out on the fly here.
Yeah.
One of the things I appreciate working with you, Shane, is the collaboration. Our office doors, for the most part, are open, and I get to barge in on yours and offer ideas, ask questions, get feedback, and we get lots of conversations together.
Yeah, I love that and value that about the way we work.
So just as we get to share life together with each other, with listeners. Some of our listeners are maybe some St. Luke's folks that we've walked together with for a while. Some might be some new folks that we haven't connected with before. But I imagine even the folks we see week after week, they see us in certain roles. They see you either behind them in the choir loft, or me up front in my robe, or me preaching, or you behind a guitar. Mm-hmm. And they might not actually know who we are, where we're from. So born and raised, family of origin, how'd you get to where you are?
Yeah. So, I originally hail from Wisconsin, 30 minutes north of Milwaukee, a small town called Slinger. Wisconsin's home for me. 'Cause, grew up there up until headed to college, and now more or less I'm here. So with that, I'm not alone here in Washington now. I have my wife, Lauren Welter now, I guess. Last name was Cruz, but Lauren, we're high school sweethearts, met in Wisconsin, both went to the high school of 150 kids. It would literally, the high school was built from the cornfield. Like, they leveled the corn, it's all leveled, but took a cornfield and built the school. We had 3 hallways.
Nice. Not too intimidating of a school. You're not going to get lost in it.
Oh, no.
So, and you've been married for how many days now?
Days. Yeah.
Weeks, months?
Since June.
Okay.
Since this last June. It is now April. Math.
All right, you're going on strong.
Yeah.
All right. You've got brothers, sisters?
Yeah, so I've got 3 brothers, a sister. They all, no, not all. Some of them have some of the kids, I guess it would be too complicated to go through each one. But yeah, so 3 brothers, a sister. I've got a brother out in Texas, sister in Nebraska, another brother in Wisconsin, another one in Wisconsin. And my parents now live in Florida, Pensacola, Florida. So we're all just across the map.
Yeah, awesome. And you, for college, you were at?
Oh, at college, graduated from Concordia University, Irvine.
What?
Yeah,
Me too.
Yeah, no way. That's crazy. Huh?
Almost the same year, actually.
Oh,
No. No.
Pearl Jam, I think, came out when you graduated. I don't know, something like that.
So I'm a little bit older than Shane, not all that much older.
Yeah,
Although the first time we had Shane over to our house, my wife Charlotte and I, we've got 3 kids who are now 11, 10, and 7. And after dinner, Shane left, and Charlotte says to me, Dan, he's closer to our kids' age than ours. And I said, oh, man. So, and yet the friendship continues.
Yeah, I've learned to not open conversations with people I meet. Like, oh, nice to meet you. I'm closer in age to your child than you. So I'm learning.
Your beard masks it well.
Thank you. Well, so I don't know, that's a little bit about me. Your turn to kind of share. I don't know who you are.
So Dan Weber, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. Cardinals fan, Blues fan.
Ooh, man.
Emo's Pizza, Ted Drew's frozen custard, all the St. Louis things. I grew up in St. Louis. I've got an older brother and a younger brother. We didn't go to church a whole lot growing up, off and on. We can talk about lots of faith stuff later, but kind of life strokes right now. Yeah, I grew up in St. Louis. My family moved to Williamsburg, Virginia between my junior and senior year. So a big transition there. So I lived in Virginia for 1 year, and then I decided how far could I go away. So that's how I ended up in Concordia in Irvine, California, because it was on the other end of the country. And so I didn't look back. So I hardly went home for holidays. That just sort of cut ties is too strong of a word, but I left the house and went to study theology, biblical languages. That's where I met Charlotte. So 4 years there, then went off to Concordia Seminary back in St. Louis, which is a graduate school to study to be a pastor. The way that program works, the 3rd year is an internship year. They call it a vicarage. So I had a vicarage year, my internship 1 year assignment in Oklahoma, a little town called Midwest City. We told the placement director we would love to go to either coast to a large city. It's just 1 year. Let's have a big adventure. So we ended up in Midwest City, Oklahoma.
So you literally said anywhere but the Midwest. Yeah. And they're like, oh.
Perfect. We know a city in the Midwest. It creatively called Midwest City. So that's where we're. And it was awesome. That was a super transformative time in my life. So I've been married to Charlotte for 17 years-ish. Like I said, 3 kids, daughter, son, 11, 10, and 7. After Oklahoma, went back to St. Louis for a year, and then served a church in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho for 5 years. And then I started a church in Omaha, Nebraska for 4, and now I've been here at St. Luke's for just over 5 years and like 4 days. So going on, I was going to say strong, but at least going on. We'll see. It's going on. Depends who you ask how strong it's going. Yeah,
it's going well.
Oh, it's
you
fun.
Ask me.
I also have a geriatric cat that we adopted, Louis Pickles. He was full grown when we adopted him 17 years ago. So he is not long for this world, but he's quieted down and he's become very lovable in his final days.
Just crazy for me because when I first met you and the cat, I don't know. You told me like, hey, he's got about a week, and that was a year and a half ago.
We've been bracing for it for years, and when it happens, I'm sure it'll catch us all off guard, and that's just real life. So that's a bit who we are. So yeah, Shane and I, we work together. We do a lot of real life together. When Shane first moved up to Washington, he was engaged. Lauren was finishing up school, and Shane needed food. So we invited Shane over. We called it Welter Weber Wednesdays. That got too complicated, so it just became Welter Wednesdays. So we share a lot of meals together, a lot of food together. do real life together. One of the things that we do when we gather for our Welter Wednesdays, and something we do here on staff each week at St. Luke's, and we want it to be part of our show here at 2414, is we take a moment and share highs and lows. So lows and highs, things that are hard, things that are going well, things that are a burden, things that maybe you get to celebrate. It takes trust to share either of those. It takes vulnerability to say, here's what's hard. But it also takes trust and vulnerability to say, I'm proud of this thing or thankful for this thing. I want to celebrate this thing, and to do that in a way that's maybe not boastful, but sharing joys. So we weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. So Shane, lows and highs from today or from the week?
Lows and highs. High is that I'm really excited for Holy Week in general. Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter. Just a culmination of a lot of planning, and to kind of see it from the vision, from the idea, all the way now to kind of the reality is taking. I don't know. It's becoming real now. We've got the tangible things, music, sound, sight, visuals. Everything is going to come together on Easter, and it's really exciting. And I've never considered myself a good planner, but now I feel like, I don't know, maybe because I'm older, or I don't know. I feel well planned for this service, and it's just exciting for that to come.
Cool.
Lows. The other night, Lauren, my wife and I were cooking, saw a baby giant house spider. For context kind of that, it's just, Lauren, wherever Lauren and I live, we have a species of spider literally called giant house spiders, and they're as big as like your fist, like with the legs and body, everything. It's just, they scare you when they see you, because you can just look up and you're like, oh, it's been there. It's the whole time. And so I saw a baby one of those last night, or I think it was last night. And so, like, even the baby is like the size of a full-grown normal spider.
Did you put an end to it?
Oh, we've got one of the best wedding gifts Lauren and I had is a wireless vacuum, like handheld.
Yeah, we used to call those dust busters when I was growing up.
It was battery or hand crank or steam powered. I don't know.
Yep, coal. Back when using fossil fuel for domestic chores.
So yeah, ours is a lithium ion battery or something like that. I don't know, but it's wireless, so we vacuum them up and then shake it. Fun fact: the first giant house spider we saw, I vacuumed it, and just left the vacuum running for 2 minutes and was unfazed. Because it's a see-through vacuum as well, so we just saw it, like, it just turned around and just looked at you in the eyes. There's more of us. Like, you can't end. So
that's your low.
Yeah, that was it's starting again. Okay. Spiders.
Is it rude if I say that's one of my highs for the week? Oh.
No.
All right. No, that's well, thanks for sharing. My, let's see. A low for me, My mom just got diagnosed with cancer, and that's been a scary thing in our family. And they're out in Virginia, so I'm not there. We're talking on the phone, FaceTime, Zoom, kind of stuff. But this week she starts her first round of chemo. So yeah, we'll see what that brings. I think she's mentally in a good spot, and she's got a strong faith, and her first round is going to be 5 hours sitting in a chair in a room with other patients. I can't have visitors in that room because COVID stuff. So that's a low in my life and family right now. A high is we just got back from a little family reunion vacation in St. Louis. So I got to go to a St. Louis Blues game. They beat the Seattle Kraken. I ate a lot of pizza, a lot of frozen custard, played games with my brothers. We laughed to the point of tears multiple times. And so, yeah, still feeling great from that. And I guess the other low is just trying to keep up with Holy Week right now. We're recording this Maundy Thursday. By the time you're listening to this, it'll be after Easter, and we will be on the other side. But right now, it's a lot going into it.
Yeah.
So 2414 is the name for our podcast, and I want to share a bit about how we came up with the idea even to sit at this table and to put together this show. I was meeting with a couple a few months ago now as a premarital appointment. As a pastor, I get to officiate a number of weddings, and at this particular appointment, we were talking about how to. I say like how to fight well. I don't know. So you and Lauren have been married for how long? Months.
I didn't do the math.
Sure,
yet.
I won't put you on the spot. I thought I gave you plenty of time. Less than a year. That's good. You're looking forward to your first anniversary.
Yes.
So I was working with this couple talking about so when you're married, you're living in close proximity and things aren't always easy and there can be conflict and strife and you can be out of sync. And so we processed through that, and I was sharing how Charlotte and I fight, how we make up, how we kind of get back on the same page. And we spoke for like an hour and just sharing real life examples, different strategies, things that have worked, haven't worked, used to work, don't work anymore. Here's just a glimpse of what real life in my home looks like. You know, I'm not a licensed counselor or therapist, but as some guy who's been married for 17 years, who also knows about what the Bible says, here's where we've kind of landed with some things. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the hour, I said, was that helpful? Like, was that just me talking randomly, or did you get anything out of that? And they were both so genuinely appreciative. And it turns out they said something to the effect of they'd never really seen a married couple fight and make up. So one of their sets of parents is divorced, and so they never saw a lot of healthy conflict. And the other engaged person's parents are married, but they tended to solve their conflict behind closed doors, which is okay and appropriate. But what it meant is these young adults who are getting married kind of realized for the first time, we've never actually seen what it looks like for a husband and wife to go through stuff and work it out together. And I remember meeting with you, Shane, and other staff members the next couple of days here at St. Luke's to say, you know what, I bet there are a lot of people who could really benefit from some open conversation about real life. Mm. And so we said, what if we had a podcast where we just shared real life, and we didn't have necessarily outlandish stories. I mean, if somebody's got a big, great testimony about how God has worked in life, fantastic. Mm-hmm. But what about just the normal stuff where we've seen God working? And so we've kind of brainstormed a number of other topics, aspects of life, some specific, some more generic about just let me hear your story, where you're from. And so, Shane, as we've talked about this, what are some of the things maybe you're looking forward to hearing from, hearing about, processing with people?
Yeah, I think some of the things I'm most excited hearing from people is just the reality of things. I think the Christian church nowadays, just people's impressions of it, not even in the church, just in life, I guess, maybe because of social media or I don't know, just everything in life. People feel like there's a facade or just there's not something fake about them or whatnot. And I'm just really excited to just hear people's reality, just for them to open their hearts and just share the realities of the world. 'Cause everybody's struggling with something, and we're just here to listen, and we want people to listen that like none of us have it together. We have no idea what's going on. Like we're all struggling, and I think it's going to be really special to kind of to build those relationships, but also just for people to hear that we hope you can take something away from this, that it's all right. Like things suck, they will suck. If things are going great, that's great. We can enjoy that moment. But when things, start taking a turn, it's just had to have a community, someone to listen to, people to open up. I'm just excited for that, and the invitation for those people.
Yeah. I love the idea of just being real, doing real life together, processing, and not having this pressure of having it all figured out, but just sort of, here's where I am today, which maybe is different than yesterday, might be different tomorrow, and to carve out space and time to listen. It sounds really exciting to me. And so that's one of our goals in this show is we hope and expect to speak truth. We hope that there will be things that are helpful and practical, but really our biggest goal is to process aloud, to help articulate and to hear and to listen, to start a conversation perhaps, to continue a conversation, to maybe reshape how we engage with people, that you don't have to close the deal. We don't have to win. We can have an open-ended conversation that finishes in such a way that we're not only still friends, but we want to talk more.
Yeah.
Which just feels different from so many engagements I feel like I'm either part of or I'm observing from the outside.
Yeah. And I think another part of that too, kind of speaks into our jobs. You can't, most of the time there's not room for that on a Sunday morning, because you've got a sermon to preach. I've got music to play or choir to conduct or whatever. And there's only so much that can happen in a given day, especially in, 3-4 hours packed in a Sunday morning of different services and whatnot. So I think this podcast is also just give us room to talk to people of the church and the community, but also just other people. I don't know who to listen in on it. I don't know.
Yeah, people from the community. So not only are you and I running around on Sunday mornings, but our members are. They're getting coffee. They're going to the bathroom. They're chasing their kids. They're looking for their spouse. They got to get somewhere. They came late. So kind of one of the goals here is as our St. Luke's community, people here in Federal Way are listening, they're going to hear maybe their friend's story. They're going to put a name and a face together. They're going to hear an aspect of somebody's life at church that maybe they sat 3 rows away from for 10 years but had no idea. And so not only do you and I, Shane, get to have a conversation, and not only do our people who are listening get to listen in on the conversation, but we really hope that the conversation continues in person, in the flesh, beyond just listening, however you're listening to this at home.
Yeah.
So tell me about the name 2414. What's that all about?
I mean, I'd like to share it as if it were my idea. It was not the. Well, we had many ideas, kind of brainstorming an idea. We wanted to capture, just what it looked like in the Bible when they just talked, when they just experienced life together. Because you hear the Bible, you think of significant moments in it, you hear stories in it, but just it might sound boring, just like, a section of the Bible that just says they talked. It's easy to blow right by that. So I think it was you who had found a verse in Luke that captured this in the gospel.
Yeah, it was several of us. We were you and me and Brenda and Jan, and it was one of those impromptu meetings, I think, that we didn't have time for, actually. It was like, hey, do you got a minute for some feedback? And all of a sudden, it's like 2 hours later. And we should probably be doing our actual job, but this is exciting. And as we're searching scriptures. So here at St. Luke's is where we're serving. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, verse 14. It says, and they were talking with each other about all these things that had happened. It's Easter. Jesus was crucified on Good Friday. He was raised on Sunday morning, but most people didn't know it. They weren't expecting it. They were disappointed when he died, and they were kind of like Peter going, well, I'm going back fishing, go back to my normal life. And so these two guys were on this 7-mile walk, and they're kind of dragging their feet, and they're bummed, and they're just talking about these things that had happened. And in that conversation, Jesus shows up, but they don't know it's Jesus. And he's like, hey, what are you guys talking about? And he's kind of processing with them, like, tell me more. And it's like, well, what about this? And what about that? And he's kind of active listening. And so what I hear you saying is this. And they go on this 7-mile walk. So that's a long conversation.
7 miles.
Yeah.
I don't know the last time I ran 7 miles, or let alone just walked 7 miles straight.
Yeah. You and I hiked Poo Poo Point one time. That might have been close to 7 miles.
I think, oh, that's true. Yeah, I guess, that
but that makes my point. That was a long walk. So these guys have a 7-mile walk, and by the end they realize that Jesus has been in it all along. As they were processing what they'd experienced through that conversation on that journey, they met Jesus, and that gave a new perspective. And in that moment, they turned around and they made the 7-mile walk back to find more friends to keep the conversation going, which is awesome. And I think our logo captures some of that. Mm-hmm. So your brother Cody made our logo. Yeah. Describe the logo. What do you see in it? What do you hope our listeners see in it?
So we see we see the 2414 kind of emanating from it. I don't know, 2 speech bubbles. So just a symbol of conversation, talking one another. You see 1 speech bubble, it's a statement. You see 2, there's a response. So 2 speech bubbles. And in the middle of that, it kind of creates this road in the logo, kind of to symbolize from the verse on the road to Emmaus, how they were talking, but also just kind of with one another, just kind of on the walk of life too, just talking one another in this journey we're all experiencing together. So I think that's
So conversations happening. They're literally in Luke 24:14 on the road together, having the conversation together, and not only do we have conversation as we're going through life, but as I think about some of the more significant experiences in my life, those conversations are the stuff of life. It's not just that we talk while we're doing life. It's, for the most part, most of the things I'm doing could go away, but it's the conversations, it's the people I'm interacting with, how my story's bumping up against their story, and reshaping kind of our own life stories are changed and morphed as they kind of bump into one another. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like that in the speech bubbles themselves in our logo, like the speech bubbles are kind of reshaped around this journey. Mm-hmm. So it's not a shouting match of one on the other, but it's as they meet together, we see kind of the road unfolding. And so that's kind of what we want to do on the podcast here. We want to hear people's journeys. We want to hear how people have experienced life. I got to do this last week with my grandparents. They just celebrated their 70th anniversary.
Wow.
It was incredible, 70 years. And so the final day we were there, it was my 2 brothers, my kids, and our wives. And we went over to Grandma and Grandpa's, and we just said, what was it like? And what was it like when you got married? What were your jobs? What was it like raising 4 girls?
It's interesting saying it, what was it like, not what is it like, or I'm curious how you said what was it like instead of how is it going? I don't know.
Yeah, well, we for this moment we wanted to hear about like their childhood, their courtship, when they got married. I think it's more obvious to me. I can see with my own eyes what their life is like. I could see where they live. I can see what they're eating. I can hear from them what they did last week. But what happened 70 years ago isn't available to me. Mm-hmm. So I'm
sure a lot of the buildings they went to are probably not there anymore, or just the overall culture and the history of when they met is completely different too.
Yeah. And so so then for the next couple hours, we just listened. And my 3 kids were there, and it was, I don't know, there were about 10 of us in the room, and we just listened to Grandma and Grandpa describe their life. And for them, it was just ordinary. They just described, well, we did this and we did this and we did this. It was just matter of fact. Mm-hmm. But for the rest of us, it was captivating because it wasn't my experience, but it was real people and what they lived through. And so it was one of the highlights of my trip was just hearing Grandpa describe his old jobs, hearing them describe their first house. Their first house, they lived in an army surplus shed in the backyard of one of their parents. It was this little prefabricated structure that they used for the military, and it was 16 feet by 16 feet. That was their home.
Is that bigger than this room?
It's pretty comparable to this room.
Okay.
It's probably a little bit wider and a little bit narrower.
And the bed takes up a quarter of it. Or
So they lived in a 16 by 16 foot prefab Army surplus thing in the back of their mom's yard. And
wow.
And to hear their gratitude and their joy, and when one year Grandpa built a wall in the middle of it, and it felt like they had 2 rooms, and how awesome that was.
Yeah.
So our goal at the show is we want to, on the one hand, we just want to hear normal stories. What was it like? On the other hand, we want to hear specific instances about how people have processed different aspects of life. Are there any of those aspects of life, Shane, that we've kind of brainstormed that you're thinking of now, or maybe you're looking forward to? I just want to hear about this from a different perspective.
Yeah, I think one of the, maybe not, it's not answering your question specifically on like specific topic, but I always really enjoy hearing kind of with your grandparents, just, I don't know, just the wisdom of certain ages. Like whether it's someone who's younger than me, they've experienced life a lot differently than I have, even if it's 5 years earlier than myself. But like, I mean, especially someone who's 70, 80, much older, they've got so much wisdom and knowledge and experience in this world that I'm excited to hear what they have to say. And maybe it's not a suggestion or a tip how to live your life. It's just this is what it was like for me. And I just get to soak it in. And so listeners, we just hear, this is what life is like for them. As for specifics, my mind's kind of going blank on some of the ideas thought of.
That's all right. I'm just curious, sends up to you. Yeah. I think I'm most excited right now of just hearing people's stories without an angle, without an agenda, just who are you? Where are you from? What was that like? Mm-hmm. I'll tell our listeners some of the things we've got planned. Our first little series is going to be talking about marriage. Kind of marriage is messy. Given that the catalyst for creating this podcast came from that conversation, sharing tips about how husband and wife might struggle and be out of sync and get back on the same page, and what are some tips and trips with that. So we're going to invite some
tips and trips.
Yeah. Oh, Shane. All right. Yeah. So we're not going to edit that out, by the way, because this is not a polished podcast. This is just
you said it should have. This is it. This is real life.
We hit record once, and we will hit stop when we're done, and that's what the people are going to get. Which actually, I mean, we should tell our listeners that. So this is just real life. Neither one of us are radio people. We're not professional. I don't know, publishing, production sort of folks. We're just a couple guys who enjoy conversation and want to hear from more people. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get all the ums and uhs and likes and fillers and pops and me dropping my coffee and banging on the table. It's just real life.
I mean, same with our listeners. I mean, whenever I'm saying that somebody's going to spill something on this table, and it's going to be a frenzy.
You'll have to throw yourself across the table like it's a live grenade, and it is your duty to save us all. Thank you in advance for that sacrifice, Shane.
Oh, you're very welcome. That's another thing I want to mention too about this podcast. If you're watching, you can see that there's 2 empty chairs along with two microphones. But if you're listening, you have no idea kind of what we're talking about from the space. It's just Dan and I sitting at a table. And on this table, slightly longer, we've got 2 extra chairs and 2 extra set of microphones. We intentionally left it like this for our first episode to show we're inviting people into the conversation. We want people to be a part of this. So that's some I don't know, further context of the space that we're in.
Yeah, you'll be able to find the videos to go with the podcast, a video recording of it on our St. Luke's webpage, www.stlukes-church.com. But
with YouTube.
And at YouTube, But if you are a normal podcasting listener and you're listening to the audio in your car and you run at the gym, mowing the lawn, doing the dishes, however you do it, you're not going to miss any content. I think the video will be a nice feature, but we're not going to be holding a picture. So it's like, and now you can see from this. And you're like, I'm driving, I can't see. So however you get podcasts, if you like the video, great. If you just want to listen while you're doing life, that's great too. You're not going to miss anything.
Very true.
So our first series is going to be about marriage, kind of how do husband and wife fight and struggle and wrestle. We're going to talk about sort of when the honeymoon is over. That's Shane's stage right now. It's not even to a year. And so we want to talk to some people, maybe just a couple years beyond where he's at, but not somebody who's been married 70 years and, that's all figured out and they just sort of solved it. But we want to learn from people in different contexts. And we want to, our third one, we're going to talk about kind of the blended nature of families, whether it's a divorce and remarriage situation or whether it's different cultures coming together. Whenever people get married, you've got different families merging into one, and that gets messy, and nobody tells you how to do that. You didn't have a class in high school or college of like, all right, when you have two families coming together or more families, here are some of the pitfalls, here are some of the strategies. So Shane and I are not experts, and our guests are not going to be experts, but we're real people. And we care, and we want to bring in some more real people who care and say, so what was it like for you? What did you learn? And the people we invite into the show, they might have some really wise things to say, or they might just have more questions of, I don't know, here's what we did. We could do it differently. I wouldn't have done this. So what would you do? Not that. And if I think that might provide some laughs and some wisdom and some warning for our listeners, perhaps, and some value there.
I think every conversation is worth something. Yeah, that's for sure.
So the plan is we'll be releasing a new episode of 2414, hopefully every week. Wherever you get podcasts, you can find this.
Say hopefully every week. That just reminds me. This whole podcast is just an idea that just we've taken too far at this point. Like, we're still figuring it out.
We're in too deep at this point. Huh?
We've got all the gadgets and everything ready to go, and we've got kind of a rough plan for ahead, but by no means, we're not professionals.
Shane, that might be our new tagline: 2414, an idea that two guys took too far.
An idea taken. We don't know what's going on.
But we do appreciate your time to be with us, to listen, to be part of the conversation. Whether that is kind of a one-sided conversation, you're just listening from where you are, that's fantastic. If you want to reach out to us electronically, digitally, online, we'll share all those different ways you can connect with us at the end of the episode. If you're in Seattle, Tacoma area and you want to pop by St. Luke's, we'd love to connect in person. But before we wrap up our first episode here, we've got a few people we want to just give a shout out to thanks to helping us get up and running.
Yeah. First we want to thank Terry Johnson. She's I don't know her title. She works here at St. Luke's, accountant, bookkeeper, something like that.
Cleaner of closets.
Yeah. She does everything to keep this building standing, and very much goes unnoticed. But she was a big help in cleaning this room out, finding homes for all the furniture that were in here into other places. So, and
other people who are using the room now have a different space they can use, so that we have our dedicated studio here at St. Luke's.
Yeah. So she had to talk with a lot of people, figured a lot of things out. So thank you to Terry Johnson for that.
Yeah, also thanks to Alice Phillips. Alice has a good aesthetic eye and a really gifting for hospitality and warmth. So Alice was a big hand in making this room the cozy space that it is, so that we can have a comfortable space for conversation. Conversation doesn't need a whole lot, but we want this to be a space where you feel like you're welcome as you're listening to us. Just feels like casual, and we want it to be normal, real life, unscripted. We'll see where it goes conversation. We want our guests to feel that same warmth. So thanks for Alice for making that happen.
Mm-hmm. And also, again, if you're listening, you can't see it, but these walls are deep blue. They don't match any other really wall in the building.
It's a beautiful space.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's its own space, its own unique space, and a huge the person responsible for painting these walls is Dave Ramsey. A huge thanks to him. Not only are these painted deep blue, but the color before it was white. And Dave's a painter, and I don't know, I would be here like 9 p.m. and I'd see Dave coming out of this room, and I'm like, "Oh, Dave, is it done?" He's like, "Oh, I just got, I finished the second coat and it's still streaky. Like I gotta keep layering it on because it's dark on white."
Yeah, and we gave Dave just only a handful of hours of notice to say, hey, we're thinking about starting this podcast, and we want the first episode to be released by Easter. So could you paint this room for us tomorrow? And so thanks, Dave. And then last one, we mentioned his name earlier, but Cody, Shane's brother, Cody Welter, is the one who designed our logo. So gave us lots of concepts, lots of freedom, lots of flexibility, lots of adjustments, and so we're really proud of the logo that we have. We think it captures the spirit of what we're trying to do. And same thing, we said, hey, Cody, we're trying to do this thing that we haven't planned out, and we want to start it in 4 days. Can you, from scratch, create something that will brand this for all eternity?
I think you put it well.
So Cody, thank you. Dave, thank you. Alice, thank you. Terry, thank you. And listeners, thank you. Thanks for being part of the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to connect with you in person and online. And we look forward to being with you next time as we talk about how marriage is messy, and whether you're single, married, used to be married, we think it's going to be a great conversation, and we hope you can join us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of the episode, but we want to continue the conversation. Continue the conversation by sharing this episode, subscribing, or leaving a review. Connect with us on Instagram at 2414 podcast. Connect with us through email at 2414@stlukes-church.com. Or best of all, keep the conversation going by inviting someone to process with you, so that you can each walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. If you happen to be in the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington, stop by on a Sunday morning and say hi. 2414 is a podcast produced by St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Federal Way, Washington. To find more content, discover upcoming opportunities to connect in person, or to support the show, head on over to stlukes-church.com. Thanks for walking with us.